Nancy DeVetter would like to speak on race equity resolution for discussion.
All right, everyone. I know you've seen my draft on a race equity resolution for the city of Tybee. I haven't heard back from a few of you, so I thought we might take a moment to discuss it. I know that Pat and some others, Tybee MLK, has put forth some of the action items that I included in my resolution. And, this is kind of a moment in our history that I think it's really important to take a step back and to look at people that might be struggling and historically have done so. I've been fighting on equity issues for my whole legal career, helping low-income people access justice, and I've seen racial disparities in the work that I do. And so I'm excited to work on a policy issue that might address this. I know I know people want to be proactive, and I know that they want to look forward. But I think it's very important that we acknowledge our history. I mean, I think we can all be honest and acknowledge that Tybee has a history and a reputation of discrimination towards people of color. I know that there are people that have probably overtly been racist on the island, but what we see now is that we have systemic racism, so that even when we are not actively trying to discriminate against people, that we still affect them in a negative way. Tybee Island has a 1% minority population. I'd be interested in knowing why everyone thinks that is. I think we know that there are disparities historically that have caused people of color not to have the same opportunities that white people have. So this is a very important issue to me. I think it's very important to acknowledge Tybee's history. We were a stop in the slave trade. We had segregated beaches. We were a little short on recognizing MLK Day. We had to have a wait-in to desegregate our beaches. I understand, Spec, you might have been there. So I think we should celebrate that history and recognize it. I would love to see us, you guys have all seen my version and my requested action items. So I'd like to hear from the other council members for their feedback, because I'd like us to work together on this and to be leaders in this area. What I do not want us to do is make a statement just by making a statement. I've seen a lot of those across the country, and they don't say anything. I want us to say something and to be a leader here. And I think if we're going to interface with the community in Savannah and with our minority population, then this is a very important step. I think we should appoint a committee to do some heavy lifting and to really look at some larger issues. But the things that I have in my action item list are pretty simple. It's a committee, it's a review of some data, it's recognizing Juneteenth, it's adding historical markers like Pat has suggested. So obviously this is an issue that I'm very passionate about, and I hope that you guys will be too. So I would appreciate your feedback.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. I think I commend you for bringing this to council, and I think it is a very time-sensitive, time-appropriate moment in history to look at this and to have honest discussions about it. And I know that Monty also offered a resolution that he was very thoughtful about, and I had offered some thoughts, and I agree. Initially, I was thinking that maybe since you and Monty had started the sort of flow going as far as a resolution, looking at different language and having Bubba's input. And we agreed that tonight would be just a time for discussion, but if you and Monty or anyone else who is interested on council to just look at those ordinances, look at the resolutions that we currently, you and Monty had put together, and if you want to look at the information that I had thrown in there, that would be fine. And also have Barry and Jay and Spec and John the opportunity to once y'all kind of fine tune something to, sort of a common ground kind of thing between you two. Then send it out to all of us, and then let us have an opportunity to look at it, go back and forth with questions and concerns or thoughts, and then at the July 9th meeting, have any and all resolutions that anybody wants to put on the table, but have a document that we can actually look at together and discuss and have a motion or look at. And just, Bubba, a resolution, I think a lot of people get confused with, is this a resolution, is this an ordinance? And if you could just kind of explain from a government's perspective what a resolution actually is.
Well, most frequently, a resolution is a document to express either satisfaction or approval. Proclamations are kind of in the lesser category. Then there's resolutions, and then there's ordinances. If something is going to have the force of law, it's got to be in the ordinance form to be enforced. Every race equity document that I've seen that have been recently introduced have been in resolution format, where the government is making statements to basically become more race equity conscious. I think I sent the one from Arlington County that I thought was one of the better of that type, where it's positive statements about what the plan is with measuring criteria to ensure there's progress being made where needed. Mr. Vetter and I have disagreements and have agreed to disagree about them, but some of the language is important, and all of the language is important, but I've expressed the concerns to you as well. But having said all that, I think the resolution is the appropriate way to do whatever you all determine to be the best course of action to take. The content of it is entirely up to y'all, but I don't think it's suitable for an ordinance. And it is a significant decision because it could impact many things.
And thank you for that. And I think, looking at reality and acknowledging history, where we are, to me, more importantly, where we want to go, and a positive note, and actually moving forward with that kind of, positive ideas and approaches is, to me, very, very important. Did anybody want to tap in on Monty? Did you? No? Okay. How about, would you and Nancy be agreeable to working on the language that Bubba has thrown out there, that you and she have talked about, and what I threw in there?
I mean, we've discussed, and the reason I wanted to have this public discussion is because I don't know if Monty and I are at a point where I think we just have two different versions.
Okay.
Now, I haven't heard from Spec or from John. I heard from Jay that he wanted me to tone it down. But, I'd appreciate some feedback. So, Spec, I know you were at the wait-in. Is that?
I didn't realize you wanted a response. You never sent it. I never got it from you. I got it from Jay. I don't know.
I sent it to everybody.
No, I never got it from you.
Okay.
I didn't know you wanted a response.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate your thoughts.
Well, I'd rather y'all work on it and they come up with something. I'm willing to help them write it, if they want to do something. And I don't have a problem with the recognizing Juneteenth and the wait-in. I don't have a problem with that at all. I don't agree with a lot of language that was in it, but.
Well, good, and maybe having this, the language, something that we can all discuss and agree on. John?
Well, I've seen two versions. Nancy, I've seen yours. Monty, I've seen yours. I did not see what you sent, Bubba, nor did I see what you wrote up, Shirley. I can support Monty's. Nancy, I agree with Jay that yours is too strong, and some of the whereases, frankly, I think they're too much. I think Monty had a more all-inclusive tone to it, which is what I appreciated. Since I've lived on Tybee, Tybee has been very welcoming for anybody who is well behaved. There are more people of color here now on any given day or weekend than at any time in the time I've lived here. During the whole time I've lived here, Tybee has been very welcoming and supportive of the gay and lesbian communities, transgenders. So my experience with Tybee has been all-inclusive, very welcoming, very friendly to everybody that behaves. And I think Monty's captured more of that tone than focusing on just one aspect.
Well, I want to be clear, this is a race equity. We're not talking about sexual orientation or Native Americans. This is specifically about race.
And
I understand if we want to do a declaration to recognize, our LGBTQ community, then that's great too. So, is there a specific whereas that if I took it out, it would be more palatable? Because my issue with Monty's version is it doesn't really talk about Tybee's history at all.
And John, I'll send, honestly, I sent it like last night at 3 o'clock. So I'll send it to everybody, and also send the one that Bubba had sent. But did you want to say something, Barry?
Yeah, I got to say something here. I can't help myself. Me and Nancy talked about this, and I told her then, all lives matter to me. People of color have always been treated as equal on Tybee Island. Now, if you've got some proof that tells me they have not been treated that way, I would like to hear it. Because Spec could tell you, Jay could tell you, our entire lives, people of color that live down here have been treated just like everybody else has. There's never been any racist type things. There's never been anything that they were not welcome. I've sat down and ate supper with them. I've had them at my house. Now, I want to know what you got that you said they have not been treated equally.
Okay, Barry, thank you. I think that going forward, if you guys would go ahead and work on this, and if everyone would take the time to look at what they come up with collectively, I think it would be good, and then we can certainly have a discussion. Yes, Jay?
I did speak with email Nancy, and hopefully her and Monty can come up with something. I'm sure there's something we can pass. I think we all have a passion to take care of people. I just don't think I think it needed to be toned down somewhat. And that was my thoughts talking to her, and I think Monty had some great ideas. But I think we've come a long way down here at Tybee. Thank you.
And all that, I think our TIPD does a great job, and then obviously Tybee has come a long way. But I think it's important to acknowledge our past if we're going to address going forward. And I have heard stories from people that feel, I myself, of course, haven't been treated differently, but I'm young and white. So, and one of the action items is to review our data to see if we have systemic racism. So I think that would be a very helpful thing to do.
If I could say something.
Sure.
I grew up down here at Tybee, Nancy. My grandmother, she was 100 years old before she died. Her best friends were black ladies. They were her best friends. I don't remember a slave on Tybee. I think we've all appreciated everyone that has ever come down here to Tybee. And I think we don't need to just try to reinvent the history that Tybee's been dealing with.
But I think we need to remember that we are in a separate place in this, so we're not talking about our lives. And just because we haven't had the experience of
we're dealing with Tybee. I'm not dealing with California. I'm not dealing with Florida. I'm dealing with Tybee.
Well,
okay, so that's what my deal is.
I appreciate that. And we as Tybee can make an example to say that we recognize that Black lives matter, right? And that's all we're trying to say. We're not saying that other lives don't matter.
All lives matter, Nancy.
So you're saying that Black lives matter
Okay, you know what,
too.
I appreciate the discussion that we're having. I want to keep it on a positive note. And I think that, I'm glad that we're having a discussion, because I think sometimes when you don't talk about things, that just, they never are addressed.
This is a very hard discussion for people.
It is, it is. And I don't
I'm
think
happy that we're actually having the discussion. I also propose that we could have a workshop, or we could have a mediator to kind of walk through it. But because this is a moment in our history where we can do the right thing and address our past. And I know that makes people uncomfortable, but I think it's really
Nancy, what have
important.
we done in our past?
Hold on a minute, dear. Let her
What have we
finish.
done in our past that you feel so strongly about? We've done something wrong.
Dear, I don't
We
think
didn't
that's
allow
what
Black
she's
people to come
saying.
to our beaches.
She's-
We have racial segregation.
I think she's acknowledging the fact, I mean, she's just trying to say, look, this is a top point in time that racism is really, really a subject that the whole world is dealing with. I lived in the 60s and 70s. We protested, we looked at, racism, poverty, discrimination, women's issues. It was important. The best thing about that period was people talked honestly and openly. Didn't agree always, but they listened to each other. And I think that what I'm hearing Nancy say is that's what she wants us to do, is to respectfully listen and try to come together. Maybe what she and Monty bring to the table will say, no, we're just not ready for this right now, but we're talking about it. But maybe we will. So I think that we're all and I appreciate the discussion, but I think if we can just agree to go ahead and let Nancy and Monty work on this, and I think I'm hearing everybody say that you're open to that, and then we can bring it back, put it on the agenda for July 9th, and I'm happy to participate any way I can, but I think that the two of y'all have a good connection and understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. Do you agree? Do you agree, Monty?
My participation in this, and correct me, Nancy, okay, please, has been, Nancy and I have talked quite a bit, is not meant to be an alternative. It's just meant to be a discussion point for her and I to have a reference. As a matter of fact, if it comes down to one or the other, I'll withdraw mine. I just mean for it to be a reference for us to talk about, to use as another point of view. I do not mean for it to be a replacement. And
Exactly.
I would rather Nancy get her resolution as she sees appropriate than it turns into Monty's versus Nancy's. That's not the goal here. The goal is to get something that lives up to what you need.
Well, I appreciate that, Monty. And, if anyone else has a race equity resolution that they want to put forward, then great. I appreciate Monty's version because it reflects the values that he wanted to advance in this
I
situation.
thought the prose was rather soaring also.
It was incredible.
It was.
And Shirley, I appreciate your version too. So, like I said, I know this is a tough conversation. This is a tough moment to talk about these issues. This is a very sensitive topic. But like I think that we can do it. We can do hard things.
That sounds good. So we're going to bring something back on the 9th. And meanwhile, I encourage everyone to look at what they sent out and comment, and we'll be prepared on the 9th. Thank you, Nancy. Now, executive session, do we have anything that we need to discuss, Bubba or Sean?
Nothing for me.
No? Anybody?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? The meeting is adjourned.